Cancorla, this month, everybody who's still fortunate to have a job in this country and they open their pay packet will find a big hole in it. And it's the same for people who are on social welfare. They'll find reductions. And people who are running businesses, even though they have signs up saying 50% off that and 60% off the other, they're still having difficulty getting customers coming through the door. And all of that is happening, Taoiseach, because of the decision that you and your government asked the Dáil to make, which was to provide a blanket bailout, guarantee, whatever you call it, which included Anglo-Irish Bank. Now, as you said in your reply to Deputy Kenny, the Labour Party opposed that at the time. We clearly differ on it, and I don't want to go back over the arguments further, although if you want to, we certainly can. The issue that arises, and the reason why there is interest in what you discussed with Mr. Fitzpatrick when you were playing golf with him and what you discussed at the dinner and so on, is very simply this. When you came into the House and Minister for Finance came in here on the 30th of September 2008 to ask us to agree to the blanket bailout, did you know that Anglo-Irish Bank was a bust bank? And the reason that we want to pursue you on the question of your contacts with the board members and senior officers of Anglo-Irish Bank is this: that on every previous occasion that we've asked you about your state of knowledge of where Anglo-Irish Bank was at and how big of a hole it was in and whether it was insolvent, you never told us about any contacts that you had with Mr. Fitzpatrick or with the senior officers of the bank. You never told us that he telephoned you in Malaysia, as you have now acknowledged. We had talked about previously here about the dinner that you had, which was at the invitation of the board of, as I understand it, the board of the bank, and we heard nothing about the game of golf. So let's take it from the top. You've now told us about the telephone conversation. A number of weeks after you had the telephone conversation, you're invited to dinner with the board of the bank. To date, you have given the impression that there was nothing discussed at that dinner at all about the bank. Never had any discussions about the bank. You sat between Mr. Drum and Mr. Fitzpatrick. They say that Mr. Drum asked you, that it was a presentation, and that Mr. Drum asked you for assistance or the NTMA to provide deposits. And you've been giving the impression up to now that you sat between the two of them. And I don't know what you were talking about. Maybe it was the plot line in EastEnders, whatever it was. But that's the impression that you have been giving. Whatever it was you discussed, you didn't discuss banking business. The month of July, the very month when you tell us that the Quinn issue with Anglo-Irish Bank was being resolved, you were playing golf with Mr. Fitzpatrick, and you have led us to believe, from all of the comments that have been made by you and on your behalf since the weekend, that you were constructing some kind of a Chinese wall down the fairway between you and Mr. Fitzpatrick, where you never discussed bank business. Frankly, I would find it quite extraordinary. I would even blame you more if you didn't discuss the bank business with Mr. Fitzpatrick. I mean, here's a bank whose shares are in trouble since March. You have two opportunities to even raise it with them, and I acknowledge what you have said, that yes, formal meetings and presence of officials and so on. But I find that the Taoiseach of the country, a man who sat in the office of Minister for Finance, who would have a certain amount of knowledge about this, I would find it incredible that you didn't at least ask, have the problems in the bank, how are they going, or are they resolved, or how are things going, and so on. Can we expect a question? But that's what you have led us to believe. So let's be clear about this, Taoiseach. A couple of questions. Firstly, the dinner and the golf outing, did you discuss the bank's business with them, or did you not? Secondly, can you tell us, can you put on the record here all of the contacts that you had with Anglo-Irish Bank between, let us say, the beginning of 2008 and the time that the bank was nationalised? Meetings, formal, informal, social or whatever, that you had with the officers of that bank or with members of its board of directors. And isn't it the case, Taoiseach? I mean, what is your I mean, no, but I noticed that you went into considerable length to address the Labour Party in your response to Deputy Kenny. But isn't the bottom line here that the government did provide a bailout and did provide a guarantee to a bank that was bust, and that the people of the country are now having to pay with it, with reduced incomes, reduced social welfare, additional taxes, loss of business, and the entire economic problem that people are trying to cope with?
Gilmore.
I have never made a personal attack on the Taoiseach in this House, and I'm not going to. Hold on. I'm not going to start now. What I did say, and what I stand over, Taoiseach, if your government knew that Anglo-Irish Bank was insolvent, and you asked the Irish people, the Irish taxpayers, to bail it out and to pay the cost that we're now paying for it, then that was and is economic treason, and I stand over it.
Here.
Now, Taoiseach, you respond to me with a lot of what if. What if the guarantee wasn't given and the bailout wasn't given? Let's concentrate on what is. And what is that the Irish people are now having to pay a very big price indeed for that mistake. And you tell us that if there was never a bank crisis, that we would still have the problem, a fiscal problem, and we'd have a problem with our public finances. If we didn't have the bank crisis, Taoiseach, if the banks and their debts weren't tied to the hip of the state, as was done with that bank guarantee, we wouldn't be in the IMF. Yes, we would have a problem that we would have to deal with, and that we would be capable of dealing with. And it is because we have that bank crisis that the first line, if you like, of the IMF deal is the amount of money from our savings, from the pension reserve fund, that now has to go in to bailing out those toxic debts and those toxic banks. Now, in the entire reply that you've just given me, you didn't answer the questions I asked you. I asked you to clear up this business of whether you did or you didn't talk about bank business at the dinner and on the golf course. It's a straightforward enough matter, and to tell us what other contacts, if any, you had with that bank and its officers. But perhaps, Taoiseach, I think there is a more fundamental question, because we are going back over the past here, and one of the ways that we had for doing it